home decided to watch some TV, listening to the news by Gordon Mosley. Listening to the things that he say he tracking tonight, paying close attention to make sure I hear it right. But when I hear the things that he mentioned on the news, I had to declare them kind of thing got me confused. I hear some things where the ERC noticing, and it convinced me that people ain't learning nothing. We hear so many times about them big name calling, and they say the ERC pretend that they didn't learn nothing. But once you're black and you just decide to say a word or two, bet your life on that, they say the ERC coming for you. Listen to the things you just hear on social media. Only one set of people allowed to talk in one Guyana. I still say nothing, black people in learning. But this is my concern, I hope one day black people will learn. ERC that I would like to know, if any of its members happens to be black people, and if that is the case, I want them to answer this call. Tell me how come none of them ain't got no voice at all. You're showing signs of weakness and you're afraid to be fair, and we see the same thing keep happening year after year. And the day will come when all this nonsense will stop. That will be the day when black people decide to wake up. Not so long ago, something terrible happened. This young Indian man want to kill out all black people by poison. But if his shoes was on the other foot, would have been a big joke. But up to this day, this ERC can't do nothing as yet. How come it's only black people committing cybercrime? When pretty on social media fussing people all the time, I still saying black people in learning. But one day will come when the entire table will turn. Excuse me, see they fail to condemn, because these people think that the law is only for them. And anybody else who decide to file a complaint, they go call you a racist and don't want to hear nothing. Plenty complaint from time to time has been brought to their attention, but because of this one-sided cybercrime is why they don't show any concern. There's only one set of people that they really care about, and black people must take the abuse and shut them out. That Amsterdam went to court just recently for an issue that was highlighted by the same ERC. And with breakneck speed, the police decide to jump on his case. Without a search warrant, they went and search up the man's place. Let us all agree that black people under attack. Different laws for you and me just because we black. I still singing. Black people in London. To all my black friends, we must put a stop to all this nonsense. Cybercrime laws to keep people silent, just to make sure nobody criticizes government. And while that is a very clear case of dictatorship, it is no surprise that the ERC ignoring it. Why only the chosen few is allowed to have things their way, when people like me and you must have nothing to say? And when ministers in the government start to launch their attack, you never hear this ERC come out and talk about that. They send a policeman all the way to New York. This fella went up there to serve a cold summer man with for bark. Under this thing, this government decide to fabricate a case, but like they forget the warning they get from Latisha James. The vice president described that he used as a low life. Because of this kind of abuse, he don't have a wife. I still singing. Black people in learning. Just the other day, I hope your man see help is on the way.
All right, so today we are here at Club Twilight up in Buxton, and we are here to talk about all that's going on up here. Trust me, if you are on the East Coast, you're in Buxton, you're in town, you're looking for a place to get away to, this is the place. The Cutters, listen, I'll be having some just now again. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, the ambience is beautiful, fully air conditioned. The decor is on point. The music's on point. Everything's on point. It's just me. I need some work. But everything else that belongs to this club here is on point. So if you want to find a nice little place where you can just drive out of town and have some drinks, have some food, you can call, you can order your stuff and just take it. You don't have to stay. Or if you want to stay here, that's what's up. And of course, they have special events for Valentine's. You can rent a hall. You can rent a hall, honey. You can rent a hall for weddings, for birthday parties, to have a bash. I hope he edits that out. But you know, whatever it is, this is definitely the place to be. So it's on Sideline Dam. You definitely want to ensure that you check this place out. But it's on your to-do list. All right, on your to-do list. This is definitely the place to check out, you know, a really cool, chill spot here in Buxton. I like this. Buxton needed this. We needed this. I needed this. You definitely needed too. Thank you. All right, so you might be wondering where we are. Still in Buxton at Club Twilight. That's where we are. So Club Twilight also has like an Airbnb as well. So you could come, drink, drunk, and come in the back here and lie down. Look at that. Look at that. Perfection. And the people come in the room and so on. The bed sheet matching the blind, matching the carpet, matching the this, matching the that. We know what we things in Buxton don't play with we. So definitely, if you want to come and you may be having a wedding or whatever, and you just want to overnight and just have a good time because you're gonna be drunk. We got too much road accidents, so you definitely want to come drink, have a good time. They have several rooms that you can rent. You have your toilet, you have your bath, you have your sink, you have your dining area, you have the bed. This is nice. I like it. Anyways, to my friends and my family, if you're looking for me, I'll be overnighting. Also, for those persons who are traveling in from overseas, you want a nice, cozy place out of town, then Club Twilight, call them up, look them up on social media. They have their own Facebook page, and ensure that you come up the side and have a good time. Have a good time. Have a good time. Sorry. I'm sorry. That's it.
Don't be a victim. Beat the heat with EC crystals. Party ice in large and small quantities. Call 682-7981 or visit us at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. EC crystals, pure party ice.
You can get meat anywhere, but for the best cuts of chicken, beef, pork, mutton, and lots more, check out T&W Harris Butcher Shop located in the East Rheinveld Market Meat Section. Call us on 609-7168, 641-4494. Ask for Rastaman. T&W Harris Butcher Shop for the best in fresh cut meats and lots more.
Planning a party? Worry no more. We have all the supplies you need. At EC Party Rentals, we have folding chairs, folding tables, square tables, round tables, long tables, short tables, big tables. We have chairs, red chairs, gold chairs, white chairs, crystal chairs, chairs of all type, throne chairs. What you want, we have. Food warmers, coolers, ice, beverages. At EC Party Rentals, we have what you need to have a good time. You plan the party, we do the work. Call us 622-5933. EC Party Rentals. Let's keep your party going. Are you hosting an event? Do you need ice, party ice in large or small quantities? Then call us at 622-5933 for the best party ice available. $1,000 per bag. We do delivery. EC Crystals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North. Call to have your orders filled today. Are you looking for tents to rent? Well, look no further. At EC Party Rentals, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, we have tents in all sizes and colors. All sizes of tents we have. Small tents, big tents, medium tents, extra large tents. Call us on 622-5933. We have what you need. EC Party Rentals. Big on tents. Yes, Oldies fans, Club Twilight and Blue Ribbon present Thursday Night Oldies at Club Twilight, Sideline Dam, Buxton North, with Blue Ribbon the boss and the Club Twilight family. Yes, come on out. Let's go way back to the past. Come on down.
Hey, now, morning, all you. Neighbor morning. Oh, all you do? How was all you last night? How are you doing this morning? What were you able to achieve yesterday? What signs have we seen the Guyana is going to be a better place in 2026? Or, as a matter of fact, by September 2nd, 2025. What hopes do you have that there will be a change in government, and when there's a change in government, better will come? What hope do you have? That Guyana can be a real democracy with equality for all. What hopes do you have that we can really be one people, one nation, one destiny? We can recognize the challenge there, the charge in that motto of ours, one people, one nation, one destiny, and really strive for it. Because if we are not one people, one nation, one thing is sure, we definitely have one destiny. Because your destiny is going to be dependent on my destiny, is going to be dependent on somebody else's destiny. It sounds like a talking craziness. You alone could shape your destiny, right? Trust in the Almighty. You alone could shape your destiny. But you shape your destiny with the wealth of this country, and you're living high and dry. At least so you think. You're getting fat off the spoils of war, the spoils of political war, the spoils of political thievery. You got friends and cronies in government, and you're getting contracts under the table, above the table, at the side of the table, all over the table. And so, yeah, I shaping my destiny. I got a destiny to succeed. What happens with the scrape who doesn't have this opportunity or these opportunities? What happens to the scrape that the education system has failed and he or she has no hope? Or so it would seem, the society has not created any hope for him or her. What happens when they turn up at your gate? Deciding that they want it and they want it bad enough that they're willing to take a risk to get it. That is where destinies will intersect. Because at that time, is kill or be killed, is do or be done to. So our destinies are intertwined, regardless of what you say. Good teachers usually say the student I prepared, put out there is going to depend and going to influence, impact whether or not I rest a good old age. It is time Guyanese start to see it for what it is. Unless we become our society's keeper. I ain't asking you to be no brother keeper. Be a society keeper. Unless you're prepared to be your brother's keeper, society's keeper, then all of us are going to go down a drain that we can't come up from, all of us. I mean, this might be a far-off example, but look at Palestine and Israel and what's happening in the Middle East there. Is now, I think, a 3-state war. Because as far as I see, the rest of the community, the rest of the world wasn't looking out for those who were being abused. Right? It is time we as citizens take a pause, look around us, and really assess what is happening in this society and the long-term impact that it will have. What is your current government doing to give you the confidence that Ghana could be a better place or will be a better place under their stewardship? I said I told about the president saying he is going to make Gaisuko great again. Did I tell you as part of the diversification plan that he's proposing for Gaisuko is the cultivation of cassava, the cultivation of rice, the increase in acreage for sugarcane? Did I tell you that? So because you plant more, you will produce more? I take a bet it will not happen. I take a bet it will not happen. Oh yes, Gaisuko needs to diversify. Yes, the European Union provided that, what, $30 billion or how much it was, to aid in the diversification of Gaisuko. Either competitiveness or diversification of Gaisuko. We are that it wasn't used for Gaisuko. Nobody could give a comp for it under the PPP. And so Ali is saying, yes, we have to diversify. And we're going to go into rice, and we're going to go into cassava farming, etc. Do you remember when Gaisuko supposedly went into tilapia production? Do you remember when Gaisuko went into dairy production, as in more specifically they were producing cheese? Where are those projects now? What has been the assessment of them? Why did they fail? How did they fail? What did it cost this nation? Huh? I'm sure they can't provide that answer for you if you ask. But let's look at rice. Gaisuko is going to go into rice production. Beaumont Adams or Beaufort Adams, what is the name? I think it's Beaumont or Beaufort or Beaumont. You on this live? Just a banner you don't like, come to the front of the class. But I wish Beaufort or Beaumont, I'm trying to get his right name, but it's Adams. I wish BA will come to the front of the class and tell us what's wrong with the rice industry. Guyanese rice farmers currently are getting the poorest yield per acre. The poorest yield per acre. And you know why they're getting the poorest yield per acre? Apart from the decadent farming methods, paddy bug is destroying the industry year in, year out. Paddy bug is destroying the industry year in, year out. And the PPP seem not to be able to find an answer. What is on Norman Brown's page, Audrey Brown? There? They can't find an answer for the rice industry. They wax lyrical. Ask Mustafa. They wax lyrical about what they can do for the rice industry. And anybody who wants to be honest will tell you that the rice industry in this country has performed its best under the coalition government. In the last 20, 30 years, perhaps, the rice industry has performed its best under the coalition government. It hasn't performed, it hasn't been, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the best that it can be, but it has performed the best. Hey, John Thompson, you come out by, is where you been? Instead of finding long-term solutions for the rice industry, they prop it up just like they prop up Gaisuko. Fertilizer grant and this and that and the other and the next. And that is what they provide to those rice farmers. I'm sure the rice farmers will prefer to be able to earn without government's interference. But you can't help private sector. The Ministry of Agriculture can't find a solution for the problems which are plaguing the private sector in rice. But you're taking a state corporation, Ghana Sugar Corporation, that you've already poured billions of dollars into to keep it afloat, keep it alive. Right? And say that you're going to plant rice, like guys go plant rice. Y'all could be serious. No, y'all could be serious. Oh, John Thompson was always here. He was just being quiet. I appreciate that. But you bring the breaking news now. Well, people say wonders never cease, but that certainly is not a wonder for me. I'll tell you, truly speaking, I didn't expect anything different, albeit it came at this last stage. What I can say, if that is true, if it is true, because I don't know if it's true, right? You have to be very careful nowadays with what you take as news, especially breaking news. It is the silly season. You have to look at the source. Where did it come from? I think somebody said, breaking news, news source. Oh, news source. News source is God Mosley. That man is a sticky time and do thing. So God Mosley says Amanza Walton Desir has resigned from the PNC, then I would believe Amanza Walton Desir has resigned from the PNC. The question is, therefore, is it another defection? Because this is the season of defection, right? David Hines asked me, Professor David Hines asked me yesterday if there were any other defections. Up to that time, I told him none that I heard of. Right? I told him none that I heard of. And so to hear of Amanza's resignation this morning, I am tempted to ask, like I've asked, is it another defection? But has she done it the right way, the decent way, the credible way? Resign and then move on? Huh? I should be drinking water and mind my own business. But it so happens that Amanza Walton disease business is my business too, because she's a public figure. She's a public political figure, and she's been out there all the time. You know, I'll tell you all something. Listen, I love me, you know. And before I go there, as long as you hardly make any financial contribution to CAMS TV, I haven't been pestering you for that. But let me put up the information so that you can make your contributions. Come on, be good. You can contribute to Zelle and you can contribute to Cash App. I'll put up the Cash App information in due course. But there is this Zelle. A lot of people say they prefer to use Zelle. Just go in there and tip the program, man. You know, I haven't been doing that for quite a while. I mean, I ain't complaining. I ain't left nothing with nobody, you know, and I ain't begging. I don't like this begging thing. So be encouraged. Put something here. Oftentimes I sit back and I say, you know, I got the impression a lot of people underestimate my ability to read the signs when it comes to politics, especially in this country. A lot of people underestimate, I would say, the depth of my analysis when it comes to politics in this country. And why? Perhaps I don't use the Eiffel Newton terms and I don't use all the technical and technocratic and scientific language and so on. I bring it straight to you. This is how I see it. I don't pontificate a lot. But if you were looking over the years, from the time the Aubrey factor came into being, or the consensus candidate factor came into being, or the challenges to Aubrey Norton for leadership of the PNC came into being, and the fallout as a result of those issues there. If you were to observe the way Amanza was moving, nothing will surprise you about this announcement of her resignation. Nothing. There's a guy named Critchlow and Chief Whip Christopher Jones. Right? They say, show me a company, I tell you who you are. And I'm sitting here this morning, and I'm saying that based on my observations, it will not come to me as a surprise if Critchlow and Chief Whip Christopher Jones follow suit. I don't know for a fact that Critchlow is PNC, but I believe he is PNC. But definitely Christopher Jones is PNC. He is Chief Whip, and so on and so forth. Remember that electoral cycle is coming to an end rapidly. Just how Parliament will be prorogued. election date has been announced and so on. I think they got 30 days before elections to go parliament or 30 days before nomination, whichever. But we're approaching that time quickly. And so a lot of people will cease their political parliamentary existence will cease to be. They'll no longer be a part of the parliament. In fact, none of the political contestants will be parliamentarians because the parliament will be dissolved. That's the word, dissolved, dissolution of parliament. And so everybody is back to being equal politically. All of us are aspirants. All of us would like to be a minister. All of us would like to be a parliamentarian. All of us would like to be on the winning side. So by now, everybody who was receiving a parliamentary benefit would have received the majority of their parliamentary benefit. I think they would have, what's the word, qualified for parliamentary pensions by now because you spent 3 years, I think. Right? You get your parliamentary pensions that is secured. You've already received overtime, your duty-free concessions to this or that. You've already received your allowances to this and that and the other and the next. And so what? If I resign from parliament now, I give up a month or two in salaries. Nothing wrong with that. Right? Or who knows? Not because I resigned from the party that has me in parliament, I will automatically give up my political seat. And sometimes the process that it takes for them to remove me from parliament will see me through to the dissolution of parliament. So I can get my benefits right up to the end anyhow. Right? So this is a time when you're going to see, even if not before the dissolution of parliament, once the dissolution of parliament comes, you will really see who have been paddling in the same direction with Aubrey Norton and the rest of the coalition, or the opposition in general. You will see who was paddling in the right direction, in the same direction, I see. A lot of people can be in your boat, but they don't always be paddling there. Some of them will be boring holes inside. And so back to my observations. Since that time, with leadership squabbles and so on, Aubrey Norton, Amanza Walton, Desir, and all the others, Royce Ford, and all the others that were involved in that squabble. I call it a squabble. If you look at how the sister's been moving, you know that the sister is not likely to stay on the PNC boat. From other circles, I understand assurances have been given. I ain't going with AFC. From our own utterances on a response to Irfan Ali on a Facebook Live, I get the impression I ain't going with PPP despite they were courting me. They wanted me to go as a prime ministerial candidate. I was reading between the lines. I don't know if you all read between the lines when you all heard her say to Mark Phillips, rest assured I wouldn't be taking your job. And she said to Irfan Ali, keep your people out of my inbox. You all heard that? If you all heard that, then my interpretation of that is that the PPP was courting her to get her to maybe take over the prime ministerial slot because they hear black people. They hear the likes of John Thompson, Rickford Burke, and others saying Amanza Walton deserves for leadership, for president. Amanza, and so all right. They don't want over at PNC, they don't want her to get the leadership position for president. We over at PPP will capitalize on that. Let us put her in the second slot. Let us offer her the second slot, and hopefully she will accept. No, she hasn't, according to her own utterances. I see people saying she is going to join up with Azzuddin Mohammed. I don't know if that is true or not. I didn't hear or see such words. But what I can say to you is I'm sure our resignation from the PNC and Parliament is not the end of our political aspirations. It is not the end of our political aspirations. And I'm going to point in a direction now. Let me ensure I got this terminology right. I'm going to use it, and then I will explain it to you. The Manchurian candidate. What is a Manchurian candidate? Refers to a person, often a politician, who is secretly manipulated by an outside force to act against their own country's interests. The term originated from Richard Condon's 1959 novel and the 1962 film, where American soldiers are brainwashed during the Korean War to become assassins upon their return home. The concept has become a metaphor for political paranoia and conspiracy theories, particularly those involving mind control and foreign influence. So my question to you is a Manzo a Manchurian candidate? And for whom? If we're arguing that she's going to go and link up with Azzuddin, Azzuddin is sanctioned by the United States of America. Everybody is saying because of these sanctions, he can't stand as president. Some people are saying he can stand as president, but the US will not do business with him. I am saying to you, if I see a declaration today, that Amanza Walton this year is indeed linking up with Azzuddin Mohammed, I am saying to you that regime change is going to ensure that Azzuddin Mohammed and Amanza Walton this year sit in the seat of government, manipulated by the US. Why am I saying such a thing? It hasn't been a week ago, if I remember clearly, that Amanza had a meeting with the US or foreign diplomats. Which one? Y'all tell me. It is rumored. I'm saying it is rumored. It is alleged that Azzuddin went to Barbados. When he went to Barbados, he met with representatives of the US, including the FBI, and negotiations took place, bargaining took place. The world knows that the US likes a head of government that they can manipulate because they got dirt in them. They got dirt in them. Why do you think the US likes PPP? Because they got so much dirt in the PPP people that they can always pull their strings. And if you don't understand that, if you haven't seen that, if you don't recognize that, then you haven't been paying real attention to Guyanese politics. And so did Azzuddin really negotiate with the US to be one of their Manchurian candidates? Listen, y'all give me a break, man. Put me in office. I'm going to ensure y'all oil flow. Y'all going to allow my gold to flow, and I will ensure oil flow. Like the PPP is allowing the oil to flow, and y'all allowing them to do what they want to African Guyanese, especially in this country. But go right back again. I'm sending you back to when those fallouts happened with Aubrey Norton and all of those who were contesting for the leadership of the PNC. And look at the relationship that Amanza has developed with the international community over a period of time. If I'm not lying, I'm alleging that she, along with at least one other female opposition parliamentarian who has had the fights with the opposition leader, have participated in some overseas, US-sponsored overseas, let me just call it strengthening program. Right? Either through Peace Corps or some one of these quasi-service organizations of the US government. It is argued that it is through those programs, through some parliamentary this and parliamentary that and this and that, it is through those programs that they identify you, they pull you out, they select you, they take you to their place, they influence your minds, and then they send you back to Ghana or wherever they want you to sit and wait until you get your instructions. I am saying to y'all, we have a lot of people offering themselves up for political leadership right now in the next elections that are not pro-Guyanese. They're not pro-Guyana. They're pro-America and pro-self. Pro-Guyana? Pro-American and pro-self? Yes. And if you all don't believe me, watch and see as the game unfolds. Somebody is saying so. In summation, somebody is saying, so you're saying Guyanese shouldn't vote because the election is already decided? Guyanese must vote. Guyanese must register the vote. I said to you on this program several mornings ago, in my head, the election is already determined, but I can't tell you so who. I can't tell you who it is determined for, but I am feeling a strong sense that the election is already determined outside of the poll booth. Outside of the poll booth. But do citizens have a right? Can citizens really make an impact on that election? Yes, I believe citizens' vote can really make an impact on that election. And so what citizens are really supposed to be going to the polls for is to vote against neocolonialism, to vote against a new form of colonization, to vote against a new colonial master in the US and maybe Canada and UK. That is what citizens have to go to the polls and vote for. And that is why it's important to recognize that we're one people, one nation with one destiny. Because unless we go there solidly and vote for a political grouping that will not allow the Americans and the Brits and the Canadians to have free reign over the resources of this country while the people suffer in this country, you are going to suffer the same fate as our resources are taken out of this country. As we are labeled the fastest growing economy, the 10th richest economy, and this and that, and our people are eating shit on a daily basis. They can't get a balanced nutritional meal on a daily basis because they're paid starvation wages on a daily basis, and food prices are rocketing sky high in the marketplaces on a daily basis. All of us will be faced with that. While the foreigners and their lackeys in government continue to get fat off of the resources, and the people are going to tighten their belt until it reaches their freaking spines. That's my layman assessment for you. I'm from Buxton, Bagdam side, a proud product of Buxton, Bagdam side, a damn simpleton. I know nothing but diplomacy and technocracy and fat. I call it for what I see it as. And if you can't see it yet, I'm going to tell you something. It's a fool or star, fool don't listen. At least not this fool. I tell you how you say about Jag, you're saying they ain't signing no contract for the oil to gas the energy project until after the election. And then signing no contract for this until after the election, and then signing a contract for that until after the election. You don't understand what's going on there. And public servants going to get, remember, finally they said public servants going to get a better increase in salaries in 2027. You don't recognize what's going on there. Is the vote for me attitude, vote for me and I will give you this, vote for me and I will give you that. That is the attitude that they're taking on. And not only with locals, but internationals. Who are the players in the gas to shore, gas to energy project? Who are the players in oil exploration? These new projects that the PPP said they're going to sign until after the election. Who are the players in these quote-unquote transformational economic projects that are lined up? And the PPP is saying we're going to sign them until after election. In other words, if you want them signed, because you ain't got no guarantee that the opposition combined gonna got your back like we got your back, gonna be willing to play the way we are willing to play, gonna give you all the leverage and the tax holidays and so on that we're willing to give you. So ensure that you work your magic, that we get to return to political power, we get to return to government, and then we're going to sign them. Because if you don't work your magic to ensure that we get back into government, you have no assurances that it's going to be signed. And we know you want to sign. So you got want it bad enough to influence the elections bad enough so that we can be back in power. I am saying the citizens must want to have economic freedom bad enough to vote against this new form of colonization and enslavement. And so if you can't see the importance of one people, one nation, one destiny in these elections, then all of us will have to live with our destiny. Me destiny? Must you realize already? Sit down, analyze the foolishness, talk about it, and thank God for the better life. It's them young people I'm sorry for. I'll be very honest. I'm sorry for the next generation or the current generation. Me being caught up in this new form of enslavement, possibly, you know, because all things are possible. But it's what they're going to use to control me. I ain't materialistic. What are they going to use? I ain't a political prostitute. I don't politically ship jump. What are they going to use? I ain't see myself as a scrape. I ain't see myself as model for hire. I ain't see myself as a bagman. What are they going to use really? I ain't overly ambitious. At least I don't believe. And I must be this or I must be that. Otherwise, I have not accomplished anything in this life. Hey, my biggest accomplishment in this life is so far grooming my children to be productive, and constructive contributors to this society. That's my pride and my joy. When I look at my children, I see that, hey, for the years that these children have been on this existence of this earth, they've been positive contributors to their family, community, the society. They ain't troublemakers. They're not criminally involved and inclined. That's a positive contribution to society. Ask not what your society will do for you, ask what you will do for your society. I give them two great contributors to the human resource pool as my direct offspring. And I've given them several others as people who I have socialized. The lines are opened. 6225933 is the number to call. 6225933 is the number to call. Black people, especially African Guyanese, must decide if they're going to sit down. Right? I don't even know if you could sit down, but if they're going to sit down and allow Bakra to force them back into slavery and colonization because they can't put their class identity and class identity aside and vote solidly for the people who might very well have their best interests at heart. Not I say might very well have their best interests at heart. I can't swear for no man. I could talk for myself. I would like to be given the opportunity to do the best that I can do for mankind. Especially my brothers and sisters in this society. Especially the people who have been oppressed like I have been oppressed in this society. I would like to be given that opportunity. If given that opportunity, I will do my utmost. Some people say my utmost best to deliver relief to this enchanted and dispossessed and oppressed and everything in this society. If Guyanese people, especially our African Guyanese brothers and sisters, can't recognize the importance of coming out and voting solidly against the PPP and any other grouping that appears to be Manchurian in nature, sad for y'all. We are going to face the destiny, wherever it is. Whatever it is. Lines are open and they remain open. 6225933. That's the number to call. And remember, y'all got some. Let me put up the cash app, man. Come, y'all do something. Y'all haven't been doing anything recently. What have you done for me lately? What are you doing? Ooh, yeah. What have you done for me lately? Come on, y'all do something. Put something in the kitty here. This thing don't run from water, you know. Water, just sipping on water to quench my thirst. Some people would have wished that to sip on water mind my own business. But I can't do that because their business is me business. Let me see if we got any voice notes while waiting for your calls. Is that the phone there, though? Good question. Hey, where the phone there? I ain't there it ring though, so I ain't stressing. I don't know where it ring. We got two voice notes. Let me start with this one.
Morning, Brother Kidaki. Morning, viewers. Viewers on Brother Kidaki, when Mr. Patterson, when the opposition, they placed Mr. Patterson there to be the chair of GCOP. The PPP, all who raised the frack and all who raised their jingy dress, you understand me? Jump up. All the ABC country then jump up to remove Mr. Patterson. And what's going on today? And everybody are silent. Everybody are silent on GCOM. So that we show naturally that the ABC countries and the rest of the country that have a hand in our election, they want to put the PPP back in power. And you see no reason that these people don't want to put the PPP back in power because they know where they're getting out of this country. You understand me? It's amazing to see nobody all the ambassadors them that are in this country. What's the purpose for these people in our country? That's why you see what's going on in South Africa today. That these people don't want these people. Because this is the people that has been in a country that keeping in a sitting and get to know what to take out of their country. You understand me, Brother Kidaki? And this is totally wrong. This is totally wrong. And kudos to South Africa. Kudos to Africa today, especially Burkina Faso and the rest of country that stood up to this white Caucasian that trampling on the African continent for all these years. And we in Guyana, we have to put a stop into it because this thing going on a dangerous road. Everybody is quiet with all the things that this installed government are doing and GCOM are doing. You understand me? It's atrocious. And we need to do something because this election is done rigged already. Don't care if it's and twisted, Brother Kidaki and viewers. It's done rigged already. Because look at the dilemma that this country in at this state. With that young girl murder, Adriana, murder. I think nobody in the right sense should vote for the PPP government. For trying to dog this girl case, this girl murder, brutal murder, under the carpet, like what they do many others. You understand me? And this is wrong. This is wrong what the ABC country are doing to this country called Guyana. They're thieving everything out of our country. I listened to Glenal yesterday. He said, they're making airstrip and take our gold and diamond from in the interior straight to Canada. You understand me? This is what this installed government doing to Guyana. They're giving away everything out of Guyana. Wait, we don't mean for long? We don't mean for long from our African continent, them? Come on, bro. It's shame and embarrassing. And I want the opposition, especially the WPA. Y'all don't settle for nothing less when you see y'all come together because Dr. Hines and Bodeki Daki, you know, one of the most powerful work in this country today. And I want Guyanese, wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up, Guyanese. The PNC and the WPA are doing a wonderful job in this country. And not left out Mr. Duncan, Sharon Duncan. Sharon Duncan, kudos to you. Kudos to you, Mr. Duncan, in the AFC, but I wouldn't, you know, big up the AFC because the AFC are looking for power. And the last coming into the opposition, and I think Mr. Abinathan, hold your hand. Dr. Hines has to be the prime ministerial candidate for this country. For this country, Dr. Hines done it all. He fight for black people, he fight for African people in this country, and he fight for everybody that this installed government are trampling upon in this beautiful country called Guyana. And I think enough is enough. Any of you, y'all have one the most awesome day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that voice note. John C. Paul says the information available to some indicates that since 2021, the U.S. government had State Department and CIA agents sounding groups and individuals about Amanza Walton Desir. One such person obstructed the democratic change in a pro-African Guyanese organization. I'll tell me about them. I wonder who's the boy. Can't hear my gun whistle. Well, Corleone, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Amsterdam. Good morning, everyone in the Guyanese diaspora. Good morning to our Guyanese. So we see Amanza. See, that's why I spoke to her yesterday. Because we saw her say, since he made that statement, enough is enough, we know she was laying a pretext that she can't take it no more. So she started out with enough is enough. Then later on, she come with a strategy. Well, you know, there's a lot of things we could keep silent about. Dr. Hines always say, we're guinea bird a holla and a day lay egg. And we could stay silent and not let people understand the strategy. I think voters have a right to know. And why politicians are playing games with the will of the people. Because a lot of politicians are jumping around the place. Keep in mind, Mr. and Mistress Politician, that you are jumping around with our votes. Right? You are jumping around with our votes. And I don't think many of you, the things that you're doing, we gave you the permission to do any of what you're doing with our votes in our name. We didn't decide, but you took those of you who know what you're doing are taking the people's votes and doing something else. It's called fraudulent conversion in another way. So I could remain silent because all of this is strategy, right? I understand that we are trying to get the PPP out. But do you understand that you're offending a lot of people by not telling them what you're going to do with their votes? You understand what I'm saying? We understand that you're working strategy, but at the same time, it's like Order 60. Order 60 did some good, but Order 60 never consulted the people to tell them yay or nay. Never asked the people, can we do this in your name? Never did that. And that's why Elijah Moore got the first recount thrown out. Because persons like Jack Dio and Granger were attempting to do things on the people's names without consenting the people. The right of the people to know. The right of the people to know, Amanza. The right of people to know, James Bond. The right of the people to know, many of you who are flip-flopping and taking the vote of the people and doing something else. Even those of you who are running and attempting to drum up some type of consensus. Consensus under whose name? Who gave you permission to do consensus in my name? You ever came to me and tell me that you're going to take my vote and then go and align with somebody else? I never agreed to that. You see? So I could stay silent on that and say, let her run the strategy. But at the same time, I'm staying silent and let you hoodwink us. You see? Fraudulently converting my will to do your individual special interest will. And that's what's going on. And we say that we're doing it to put the PPP out. So you say. Right? So you say. But while you're trying to put the PPP out, and that ain't guaranteed, one thing's for sure, you are deceiving the people at the ballot box. It's called disenfranchisement. Oh, you never? If you know what disenfranchisement is, it ain't only hiding votes. It is telling the people one thing and doing something else. Because if you tell me to vote for you on the one manifesto, then you take my votes and you switch out on me. You have disenfranchised under the first intent for which I vote for you in the first place. You disenfranchised me under the pretext of original agreement. You didn't think of that? So I could stay silent and not say anything and let you continue to do and deceive the people. So that's where we are now. Taking people's votes, pretending to do one thing. Then when you get the vote, you switch out and do something else. Tell me what you call that, Mr. or Mistress Politician, what you call that. And that goes for Muhammad. That goes for Amanza. And the rest of you who think that you are more principled than the voter. That your switching out agenda is a more principled, high road agenda than our mediocre vote. Once again, Mr. Amsterdam, thank you for giving me the time to talk to our people. Straight and direct.
Thank you for your call. The lines remain home. 622-5933 is the number to call. You tune to the Guyanese Morning Time. And there are still voice notes to call. Alfred, thank you, buddy. I see you jump into the Zell and you left a little thing there. Thank you. I saw somebody saying, Mr. Sam, you say you're materialistic. Stop begging. Hey, get it right. I'm not begging anybody for a thing. Do you recognize I provide a service here on a daily? All I'm saying is that the systems don't run on water. Let me tell y'all something that y'all don't know. And when y'all make these comments, I just gotta set y'all record straight. Yesterday you had a program, right? Yesterday you had a program. Do you know that there was internet outage in this country for the last 48 hours or so prior to yesterday? Do you know how I got internet to run the program? Do you know I subscribe to 2 internet companies just so that we don't get interruptions from our program? You don't know that. Where do you think the money comes from to pay for it? Do you know we had extended blackout yesterday? Right up to 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, just at past 3. I just saw the viewer used to say, when I said blackout, the viewer used to say, why you don't put on the generator? Because you don't run on water. And comments like the one just now, you're materialistic, stop begging. Those are the things that piss me off. I was never meant to be a beggar. And I will never be a beggar. So if you see me asking you to contribute to something that is of benefit to all of us, as begging, you might as well get from here. Get! Voice note. Let me look for it. I just want to put on a card into the first voice note to put on my jingy dress and address y'all accordingly. I must be the only African guy that got jingy dress. Because if they send Jagyo putting on the jingy dress and doing this and doing that, and I ain't see nobody else putting on the jingy dress, something wrong with us. Call it on. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Kodaki.
Good morning to you.
Morning, audience. Kodaki, forgive them for the know not what they say or do. Understand? America. America got 2 horses in the race now, Mr. Kodaki. They got the PVP, and they have a man of Alton, and that same young man, Mr. Man.
There's the 2 you know. Hey!
More people, let me tell you this. America playing a game name, I shall not lose. Aubrey Martin and Apno is the fittest people to run this country. Apno, you hear say Apno. Meaning that we don't have to be the leader for Apno, but what is Apno? You understand me? Apno is the fittest country to run, the fittest party and coalition to run this country. But America know if it happen, things that go so straight for them. They know that have no strings over Aubrey. They can't push and pull certain people. You understand me? But with Mohammed, they could. With the PDP, they could. And Amanda now, it's unfortunate, eh? Amanda, I love you. I love you. Please love this country. Please put this country first. Amanda Walton, please put this country first. Please don't put yourself first, please. Again, it is good to be ambitious, Samantha. But too ambitious is a bad thing. Please put Guyana first. Please put Guyana first. People, please vote for Apno. Please, I tell y'all, Apno got this country at heart. As Mr. Kodaki said, he's so right. Them 2 other folks or groups, They got America and the self-attack. Look at this country. Please. Yeah, vote for Apple, please. Thank you very much.
Caller, before you go. Oh, the caller gone. I wanted to ask the caller, because the caller said the US now got 2 candidates in this election. What happened to AFC, man? The US has no interest in the AFC being in power. Y'all going to research the birth of the AFC. Cheers, who don't know? Who don't know? Cheers. Research the birth and perhaps the rebirth of the AFC, and then y'all tell me if it's only 2 candidates the US got in this elections. Well, yeah, the US might got 2 candidates in the election. How many candidates Exxon got in the election? The lines remain open. 6225933 is the number to call. And I'm repeating, y'all put something in the cash up, the Zelle, the MMG, and so on and so forth. And that who believes that I'm begging, go to hell. Voice note.
Kadaki, blessings and good morning to you and our Guyanese listeners and listeners from the diaspora and the 4 corners of this earth. Kadaki, to serve Brian Young and his wife and his 2 children that are alive, we all know that you will be laying Adriana to rest on Sunday. The world will be looking on. So Brian, you did well as a father. You try your best. And personally, I give kudos to you. But I will tell you this. Meekly wait and murmur not. Weekly wait and murmur not. When Adriana lay to rest, Karaki, Sir Brian, all hell will break loose. 3 days after that girl body submit to the earth, all hell will break loose. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a Obia man. I'm not a Sisia man. But justice for Adriana. You will get justice for Adriana. I will rest there for now. Have a good one.
Thank you for. Hi, hello. Good morning. Anybody home? How y'all doing? How y'all passed y'all last night? How was yesterday? What were you able to achieve yesterday? Did it rain yesterday? I think we had some rains. I know this morning we had some early showers. Kind of weather that say stay in bed. Don't worry this thing by ready for letter. Hey, young ducks and experienced drinks. Man, how you do? How have you been keeping? Nicola Thomas, I trying to understand what you're saying, but I don't speak gibberish. Anyhow, I trust you had a productive yesterday and you had a restful night. I also trust that you woke up this morning and you have decided to rededicate your energies to the struggles. Rededicate, and when I say struggle, I'm talking about political fights. Right? You've rededicated yourself to fighting for a better Ghana. Fighting for a democratic Ghana. Fighting for a Ghana where law and order is the order of the day. I hope you are re-energized to continue that fight. But as we are here, we've heard the press conferences, we've seen the unrolling of websites and so on and so forth. And so we ask ourselves, Did all of this happen in a few hours, or did all of this happen in just a week? And as dumb as some people might want you to think you are, I am sure you can come to the conclusion, at least I've come to the conclusion, could never be Forward Guyana. Wasn't formed in a day, wasn't formed in a week. It had to be it was formed, like when Paul set in Poneg. All the preparations are right there, waiting for the opportune moment. I don't let none pass me by just saying, let's read between the lines and above the line and so on and so forth. And so I think the announcements had to be made, because in a few days, what is the date? I can't remember. But GCOM has announced the deadline for the submission of symbols. And so if you're going to contest the elections, in a few days' time, you have to submit your party symbol. And so whether or not you were keeping it close to your chest or under wraps, like pregnancy, they usually said the thing don't go in, it does go out. You had to come to the fore and say, well, here, I have this plan and this is what I'm going to do. This is what my symbol is. Right? And so when you look at website, enrollment form, symbol, I will say a well put together platform. You gotta ask yourself, wait, man, these people are Trojans. How many Trojan horses they really had in the PNC/APNU? Huh? As Percy saying, when by Martelly compelled don't get book. That book was selected and fashioned and refined and was waiting right there for the appropriate moment to get them a busted like we have Gonzalez got a year or 2 or 3 ago from one of his citizens. Right? But life is life. And the reality is, when people have made up their minds, and I think I mentioned that to you before in this program, when people made up their minds about who you are, there's no convincing you could do to have them change that mind. When people have their opinions about you, then there's no change in the opinion. Right? No change in opinion. And so that's why when people come and they express their opinion of me, or people come and say, well, Tom Jones got this opinion of you, I say, well, if this Tom Jones' opinion, this Tom Jones' opinion, Tom Jones is entitled to his opinion. I can't change that. At least I wouldn't do crap to change that. I will be me. And so from the looks of things, I want to make this comment before I invite Mr. Jordan. From the look of things, people were just putting up a facade. They were showing up to say they shop. Remember I told you about that big woman, that's elder, that senior citizen said to me, boy, you don't know me. I would walk with you to the finish line to watch you fail. Right? You ask yourself how much sincerity was really in all of these shenanigans that were taking place around trying to reconcile and so on and so forth. You ask yourself, how sincere were these efforts when you see what is before us now? Right? So, and I'm saying the same thing, y'all forgive me. I'm saying the same thing. I want to argue the same thing when it comes to the AFC. I see the AFC and the AP, and you don't want to tell it all now. Everybody tit for tat. You put out a statement, I put out a statement to correct your statement, you put out a statement to correct my correction of your statement, and so on. And so them boys down there, hanging out their linens. Who said they want this and who said they were giving that and who said you can't get it? But I'll tell you my simple assessment of what happened. Right? The AFC felt the bluff. The AFC felt the bluff. And none called the bluff. I know the AFC is left out in left field. I'm sure there are many among them who feel really disheartened, aggrieved perhaps, that this thing didn't go as planned. And y'all want to know if I knew? I knew quite a while ago, not because anybody said it to me, that Sherrod Duncan was going to walk away from the AFC. Because again, Sherrod lost the leadership battle to Nigel Hughes. Sherrod lost the leadership battle to Nigel Hughes. And like a good team player, it appeared as though he was willing to play along. All right, I'm going to stay in this for the long run. But then the leadership of AFC and Sherrod, I would say, the ideas were at odds. Sherrod was pushing for coalition, and it would appear as though the leadership of AFC were not serious about wanting to coalesce with anybody, at least not the APNU AFC, at least not the APNU, because of the hard bargains that they were driving. If I got more in this thing than you, or it looks like I could bring more to this thing than you, and you come and you tell me you want a majority, immediately I take you as a joke. Immediately I say, nah, you're serious. You come here for mama guy yourself. You come for bamboozle somebody. I beg, but I ain't stupid. Or I could be the bigger, stronger person in this thing in terms of organization. You come and tell me you want a majority of it. You want 65% of everything and I must get 35. In other words, you come to destroy me. You come to diminish me. You want to make me look like a clown. Right? That is how I interpret it. And then you start hearing Sherrod making certain utterances, like, for example, half a bread is better than no loaf. If it were up to me, I would have gone to the coalition and try to build my party from in government and stuff like that. And you pay attention to those things and you get the idea that, hey, this man is disgruntled. He doesn't like where the AFC has gone or where the AFC is going. And naturally, if there's a home for Sherrod in the APNU, like it turned out to be, and naturally he would go because he is for coalition, whether as an individual or party. And so I was not surprised that Sherrod is over there, Jarretta is over there. I see a lot of people commenting on the Jarretta factor. A lot of people don't believe that Jarretta should have been named prime ministerial candidate and so on and so forth. I personally would rather see David Hines as prime ministerial candidate. I've said it before that if you want to consolidate black votes, Narby Norton and David Hines, I think they will surely consolidate black votes. I think so. For me, I would have loved to see that. But all right, I can tell you why that wasn't possible. And I'm going to also tell you why all those people were expecting that Amanza Walton Dizzy could have been offered the prime ministerial position in the coalition. I can tell you why that too wasn't possible. When St. Jordan buy, you're going to buy in your time, don't worry. Give me about 60 minutes, if so long. But why Jarretta? Jarretta ticks a number of boxes. You can argue that she's young, at least compared to the old stalwarts in this political thing. She's young, so she might attract youth, at least of our age, that category, plus or minus a few years. She's woman. She's indigenous. right? She's other than black. Good. So those are some of the things. Those are some of the things that make her a good fit for that position. The simple reason why David Hines, and by extension, Amanza, under no circumstance, unless you prepare to rescript the whole political scenery in this country, couldn't be prime ministers because they're black. When it was Aubrey, or this so-called, what they call it, consensus candidate, I saw some names being offered up as consensus candidate like Terence Campbell. If Terence Campbell were to be the leader of the coalition in the election, Amanza could not have been prime ministerial candidate. Neither David Hines could not have been prime ministerial candidate. Not even Aubrey Norton could have been prime ministerial candidate. Why? Because the PPP started a trend in this country where they named an Indo-Guyanese as presidential candidate and an Afro-Guyanese as prime ministerial candidate. And the opposition of the time, or it wasn't the government of the time, I can't remember what the positions were, but the opponents, as in the PNC at that time, followed suit. They started naming an Afro-Guyanese as presidential and Indo-Guyanese as prime ministerial. All I call it is window dressing. Ethnic window dressing. And so the PPP started this trend of ethnic window dressing. And all of the political parties in this country, if you check it out, you will see, followed pattern. They follow suit. And since they like follow pattern, it developed like a culture in the society that if you have an Indo-Guyanese presidential candidate, naturally you would have an Afro-Guyanese prime ministerial candidate. And if you have an Afro-Guyanese presidential candidate, you would have an Indo-Guyanese prime ministerial candidate. And if you continue to follow that formula, which obviously is what is happening, you will understand that by no stretch of the imagination would you have had a Amanza prime ministerial position. Not even a David Hines prime ministerial position. That's my logic. And so this thing has nothing to do with whether Aubrey liked Amanza or Aubrey didn't like Amanza. The order of the day is what would dictate who gets that prime ministerial slot. And so far, because it's a black presidential, Afro-Guyanese presidential candidate, couldn't be an Afro like to break down as in you. These major ethnic groups is neck to neck. We consolidate. How kind of magic guy in man? I sit in here and I watching share magic, but we gonna live with the magic. Don't worry. We're magicians too. The internet dancing, all kind of dance, chutney, bacchanal, calypso, all kind of dancing. But don't worry yourself. The message gotta be sent. And it will be sent. So y'all could talk cheese. Y'all could do what I want. This morning we on top. Right? So those are my analyses for this morning. And as is usual, let me make contact with Mr. Jordan so he can give you his analyses, especially on the economics of this country. But y'all can take that to the bank. Though all people who say that they expected Amanza or Amanza herself expected to be named prime ministerial candidate and so on. It logically, if I say that, it's not possible looking at the manner in which our local political organizations have behaved for the last 20, 30 years. It's impossible. You're going to see the PPP will name the Amansa got a chance to become a prime ministerial candidate over the PPP because they're going to name an Indo-Guyanese presidential candidate. But from the look of things, she has already shut the door on that because she has given Mark Soup Drinker Phillips assurances she's not going to take his job. Right? Isanjuk is saying she deserves it. What does she deserve? Who are you talking about? Who is she? That's the whole thing. Because we're talking about two females here. Right? Let me go. Call Mr. Jordan. I get a little sidetracked there just now, you know. A big, you know, and y'all distract me. Stay distracted for a minute. Oh, I see Mr. Jordan has sent me this image. Like 100 million persons have also sent me this image. What should I do? Let me show you all this image. It's your fault, Mr. Jordan. Is you send it to me, say you can't blame me for putting it up. Right? Y'all notice there, those of you, there is an advertisement out there, an appeal to Indians. This thing is not couched in any diplomatic language or anything. This thing is not curry favored or anything. This thing, plain and straight, says, we are hiring for Guyana. Opportunity for Indian nurses, male and or female. Both can apply. Your general nurse, they want 50 of them. They pay between $1,200 and $1,500 US. That is $240,000 to 300,000 Ghana dollars. What do our local nurses get? I'm asking that question. I don't know, but I doubt whether they're getting $240,000 a month or $300,000 a month. But not only that, even if our nurses are getting that money, they ain't getting free food. They're not getting food and accommodation and transportation. Right? Understand that. So here is your government advertising for Indian nurses, male or female, to come to your country to work for $240,000 or $300,000, get free food, get free accommodation, and get free transportation. But your nurses who are here, born and bred Guyanese, citizens who should enjoy the sweet of this land, are sucking salt. Are sucking salt. Y'all could form your own conclusions in that. If it's racist, if it's out of necessity, I don't know what y'all gonna do. But on that note, I got some information that a whole drove of Indians who are being registered at GCOM, plain straight Indians, they can't even talk English, but they were being registered at GCOM recently. Y'all stop the rig at GCOM. Let me call Mr. Jordan. I hope this man ain't gone back to bed, you know. Oh, you're there, my man, you know you do. Good morning to you, sir. How are you? Hello. Oh, I got to unmute my mic, yes. Good morning, Mr. Jordan. How are you doing, buddy?
Hi, good morning, good morning. I'm under the weather. Noise, you know, flu here. My throat is sore, but I, like a true soldier and patriot, decided I will continue to do the program.
We got soldier on, boy. You got soldier on.
Yes, we got the soldier on. So I'm only asking my listeners and the viewers and so on to freedom. I say this in all reality of the fact that even up to today, we continue to be on the onslaught, and I will deal with that.
Mr. Jordan.
We continue to be on that onslaught.
Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
I see my viewers are saying they ain't getting no song, right? Give me a minute. Oh, it's back on now. Oh, I could give me some skill in my life. I wonder how long it went for. All right. Let's go again. Sorry for that.
Okay. They tell you how long it was missing? Hello, Kadaki? Yeah, I'm hearing you. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was saying when I came on, I was wishing our folks in the American diaspora, our African folks in the American diaspora, and our African Caribbean folks in the American diaspora, and all of the other Black folks in the American diaspora. I was wishing them happy Juneteenth. Today being the 19th of June, 160 years ago, in 1865, when about 2,000 Union soldiers rode into Galveston Bay in Texas and other parts of Texas to free the enslaved people who should have been freed many years before as a result of a presidential decree outlawing slavery, thus making those people a free people. And I was saying that too often when holidays come around, we don't reflect on the meaning and the purpose of the holiday. Rather, we tend to concentrate more on merriment. And so the message and the meaning and so on and the purpose of the holiday gets buried in the merriment and so on. And I was saying, while we could do the merriment, we could also do the message. They can go side by side and they can be integrated in a program of activities. I was mentioning also that particularly in Guyana, that months in advance, you could hear people advertising for some merriment and some bashment on an upcoming holiday without messages on what the holiday means and so on. And I said, it is time that we change that narrative. I was also calling out groups, African groups, such as ASCRIO, ACDA, and all the other groups, including 100+ groups under an umbrella of African empowerment and so on, who we don't hear anything about, except annually around the celebration of Emancipation Day. And I was asking ACDA whether they're only known for the soiree that they keep in the national park on Emancipation Day, and then they go back into their slumber. I've asked why groups like IPADG and ACDA and so on could not send out a solidarity message on today, Juneteenth, in solidarity with the people of African descent in America on this a national holiday, which is of recent vintage and only became national under the presidency of Joe Biden and so on. So that was essentially what I was saying as by way of opening remarks, so to speak. By way of opening remarks also, I think it was yesterday where you were talking about voting of prisoners. And I think you were a bit erroneous in what you were saying, because you were differentiating between those prisoners who can vote and those who can't vote. And I think you said if you are on remand, you can vote. But if you are sentenced, you can't vote. And I sent you a note by a message indicating that that is not what the Constitution says. And Honorable Chief Justice Roxanne George has repeatedly indicated that the only criteria necessary for you to vote in Guyana is that, one, you must be a citizen of Guyana. Two, you must be 18 years and over. And three, you must be registered to vote. The only time that an offense will prevent you from voting, there are two, but only one I can remember now, is that if you were convicted of an electoral offense. So if you were a convicted murderer or a convicted robber, your vote is not denied. Only if you have been convicted of electoral offenses, and I believe the other one is only if you are insane or something like that. I stand to be correct. But there's no other restriction on you put on you by the Constitution.
Forgive me, Mr. Jordan. When I spoke about the conditions under which you can vote, I was using the American example to indicate that if you were charged, I think, feloniously, then you couldn't vote. They had the different categories which I was explaining. And of course, if you weren't sentenced, you could vote, and I refer to the remanded prisoners. But yes, taking note of the Chief Justice's ruling, really and truly, I don't see why anybody should be prevented from having their vote, contrary to what Nandalal is saying recently. Thank you.
And GCOM's poor excuse, as enunciated by a government-appointed commissioner, that they don't have arrangements or they can't put arrangements in place in time for prisoners to vote, it's ultra vires the Constitution. I know lawyer, but it has to be ultra vires the Constitution. And I said in that note, that message I sent to you, that perhaps our lawyers should move with alacrity to the court to say that decision of GCOM offends the Constitution and ask for an expedited hearing. Now, I don't want to belabor this point, but I just want to point you to a letter in today's Stabroek News by Neville December Jr., a very lengthy letter, but a letter worth reading, and which addresses these issues that you were talking about, and perhaps during this session here, you could perhaps go to Stabroek News, because you don't have to subscribe to the letter column, and you can pick up the letter there, and it's a well put together letter, addresses all the issues and points the way forward, both in terms of solutions and so on. But he also makes a very valid point that any other thing that cuts across, any law or non-law or anything that cuts across the Constitution is invalid. And so GCOM must not be made to get away with something that says they don't have arrangements in place, or that there is no law. There's no law in place specifically for that, as there is in, for example, with discipline officers. The fact that there is no law means that you go back to the Constitution. You have to find a way of making the prisoners vote, or and you can't just wish them away and said, well, we didn't have time and therefore they can't vote. There must be a violation. So I leave that to your viewers and ask them to go to Stabroek News today, to the letter column, and read the letter of Neville December, and let that be a catalyst for the filing of some lawsuit or something against GCOM and this practice that will allow prisoners not to vote. So that will be my on that one. I sent you that advertisement to let you know what is happening, which you know already, what is happening in this country. A lot of it silently. A lot of it silently. A lot of it right under our nose. And one day we will wake up, perhaps when it's too late. Just like in the Venezuela case where they're sending loads and loads of Venezuelans here, and one day we might wake up and find out that through a process of occupation, that we have ceded territory without a shot being fired across the bow. And one day we will wake up because of the paucity and the poverty of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that we have, who can't seem to defend us, even when it comes to a map of Guyana. That we have ceded territory without our knowledge, because of absence to do things that we should have done. And that is what is happening. This is just a small part. You never see an advertisement for doctors and nurses in Zimbabwe, in Ghana, in Nigeria. Nigeria produces some of the most brilliant people in the entire world. I'm not saying other places don't, but you never see that. You know how many Nigerian doctors are in United States, and nurses and so on, and they sing their praises. We never see that. We never see the government going for some parity and so on in its recruitment. That is one of the reasons I send you that they are arriving here in droves, right under our nose. And we will wake up one day when it's too late and find out we have ceded the country. It's a push and a pull factor. You push out the nurses who are largely African, Guyanese of African descent, out of the medical system. You push them out. And you pull in nurses and other medical workers who are of Indian descent, whether they come from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, or wherever. You pull them in. Or you pull them in from Cuba, or wherever. But you're replacing predominantly nurses, Guyanese nurses of African descent who you're pushing out of the system with other kinds of nurses, predominantly non-African. And you know what? It's a double whammy. Why is it a double whammy? When you push out the nurses and the doctors, Guyanese of African descent, who, by all voting practices, might have voted for the PNC/APNU/coalition, you lost a vote. But when you bring in largely Indian nurses of Indian descent, whether they're from Bangladesh or India or Sri Lanka or wherever, you add a vote largely for the Indian-dominated PPP. So that's 2 votes lost to the coalition, to the PNC. 2. The one you lost by pushing out the African Guyanese nurses, and the one you lost by the bringing in of these Indian nurses and medical workers who can vote after a year of residence in the country as Commonwealth citizens. And of course, you don't have money to pay the health workers. You don't have money to pay them. But you have money, foreign currency, because the local nurses, you'll pay them in Guyana dollars. But you have money to pay well in excess of what you would pay the locals to pay to foreigners. Whose skill set you are unaware of. You have to depend on the recruiters, because you don't know who you're recruiting and what you're recruiting, who can't speak your language, and so forth. And it's not just that 1,200 and 1,500 US that you see there. There are a host of other benefits. When you add it up, the package is substantial. You have to pay the recruiter a commission for every person they recruit, plus an overall commission. You have to pay the passage return in and out of these people. You have to pay the passage in and out of their spouse and their dependents. You have to find accommodation for them. You have to pay them incoming allowance, settling in allowance, and you have to pay them outgoing allowance, settling out allowance, if you want to call it that. I think they may not be liable to taxes. The money is tax-free. And all these other conditions. You have over 1,000 plus such medical workers have left the system since 2020. Since 2020, the government has come in, largely Guyanese of African descent, to be replaced by all these workers that come in from India and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and so on. And of course, Cuba and China, by the way. Forget China also have a brigade here and so on. So we can wrap ourselves up in all this disjointedness and disunity and so on. On this Juneteenth day, while right before our eyes unfolding is a loss of our place in this society. People too afraid to talk the issues because they're afraid to be called racist. And like I said in a previous program, this is what has buried us as Guyanese of African descent in a country that we've toiled for centuries for free, and was never recompensed. Never recompensed. And we continue to toil for peanuts and piddlings while others get the gravy and the sauce. So we could continue our internecine strife and fight. When two elephants fight, the grass is the loser and the lion is the winner. So that is much I will say on that. I see Michael George, who is a ardent fan of the program. He said he hope Jordan gonna talk the thing today, and I hope the thing, and I know the thing that he was talking about was all the happenings of yesterday. I don't really want to talk about any happenings of yesterday. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of that has been talked about for a long time. And we seem not to have listeners. As we old people used to say, we cark we ears. We cark we ears. It was a few programs ago that I put out a mathematical conundrum on this program. Nobody took it seriously, but I'll put it out again. How do you divide a minority to achieve a majority? How do you divide a minority to achieve a majority? Whenever that mathematical conundrum is solved, then we could accept splinter parties and splinters. Terence Blackmon and Renee Paris have just written a beautiful article. Short, sweet, and simple. In the Guyana Business Journal. on why splintering is disadvantageous to a party or parties in the coalition. And I recommend it for reading to all those who are willing to read and understand in principle. I don't know when we are going to get it. That regardless of what we think about our egos, about our this and our that and so on, if we ever take our eyes off the prize is government. I don't mind if you're quarreling when you reach into government. At least you have the power strings and everything else that goes with government. I don't mind. In fact, that is the place to quarrel when you're in government. But what objective you are achieving when you're quarreling when you don't have government? What objective you're achieving? And how many bulls can you have in the same pen? I saw former President Granger in Kaito News of Monday of this week. Whatever you may think about him, you have to admit he's a bright person. After all, I think he won the President's Medal in history. Well, not in history. He won the President's Medal at the graduation at the University of Guyana. So that must say something. And he had an interesting take on what has been happening. And he hit the nail on the head. It's not about personalities. It's not about personalities. It's about programs. It's about boots on the ground. It's about servants, service, and servant leadership, and so on. And that, unfortunately, don't seem to be something that is rising to the top when it comes to the opposition. So I don't care who cross where, and all these kinds of stories. And I saying that it's their right and so on is neither here nor there. It's neither here nor there. Until you can solve the mathematical conundrum of how to divide a minority, because that is what is the opposition, to achieve a majority, because that is what you have to achieve to be in government, I don't want to hear anything. All them people are friends of mine, whether distant friends, close friends, and so on. But I stick with what I know, and to the best of my abilities, I lend a hand to what I know. And if it's not known, I say it again. While I'm not a member, I'm an ardent supporter of the only party in this country who has an interest in uniting this country. If only that it comes, although it gets the majority of its support from one kind of people in this country, knows that it has to cross the borders into the other races to get to the finish line. It is the only party, and that's the People's National Congress / Reform. And every party will have its hiccups and whatever else and so on. But ultimately, it is the only party, once united and strong, can fight the PPP. And I can't see how, if you splinter in pieces here and pieces there and pieces everywhere, that either the splinter or the rump that is left going to be any threat to the PPP. And if after the 23 years that those of us who are fortunate to survive under the PPP, and the last 5 years, or close to 5 years, under the very same or worse PPP, is not enough to drive us into a unified position, then we all must be accepting of what we get post September the 1st. We all must be accepting. So I'm not going to comment on who got forward Guyana, backward Guyana, who got better must come last year, this year, or next year, and so on. All I'm going to say, me, I'm like Greenheart. I'm a firm supporter of the PVNC, the party, and I, whenever they make it ready for me, will die right there. Because for their 60 years or nearly 60 years or how long they have been around, they have shown me. They have shown me a Guyanese of African descent. And they've done for me a Guyanese of African descent what no other in this country has done for me. They gave me free education from nursery to university in 1976. That allowed me to go to university, and many others like me, and many others who don't look like me, to go to university and to attend secondary school and so on. All the multilateral schools that they built and so forth. When I went to school in the late 60s, secondary school, they didn't have too many secondary schools. I lived in Kitty, but had to go way down in Cummins Lodge for a secondary school. And around that time, all they had is Cummins Lodge, Annandale, Charlestown, and a number of private schools. And the PNC changed all of that. Built some of the most modern schools ever in the history of this country, those multilateral schools that had gymnasium at the time when that was an American thing, had gym for exercise and all this kind of story, had placed a little house for caretakers, the caretaker of the school and so on. The most modern school ever built in this country. And they've done so much for us. And for all people who don't even look like us. And you think today, I will turn my back on that kind of thing? Because why? I didn't get an X position or Y position, or didn't get my ego fulfilled or so on. Do you think Mia Motley is a Johnny come lately? Check the history of Mia Motley and see how she rose through the ranks, how hard she had to work, heartaches and heartbreaks that she went through. But she persevered and persisted, and she rose to the top. I hear people talking how waiting your turn is old thing. Old thing. It might be old thing, but experience, being forged in the crucible of fire and challenges, going to the lengths and breadths of this country interacting with the people, sleeping with them, eating with them, commiserating with them. Being forged in that crucible of fire is when we know you are ready for leadership. And if it takes that 5 years, so be it. But if it has to take you 45 and 50 years, so be it too. Ask Mia Motley. She's not a Johnny come lately. She was forged in that fire, in that crucible. And that is the kind of leadership that you want. That is the kind of person that you will look for. And ultimately, that is the kind of person who will eventually build your party into something. She never left the BLP and crossed over to the DLP and crossed back to the BLP and so on. They stuck it out there. Owen Arthur said that he was going to only serve 2 terms as prime minister and then go, even though his constitution says he could serve 1,000,000 terms. But like so many others, after his 2 terms were up, he reneged on the promise and go for a 3rd term and was defeated. Instead of allowing Motley to come through. But she didn't get despondent. She rode it. She rode it. And eventually succeeded. Then we talk about people and we are this and we are that and we are born in might and we are this height and so on. I wish we would study. I wish we would study the people, their moves, their actions, their ideology and so forth, rather than thinking that just because we happen to know Bornum, we are Bornumite. Or we happen to know Jagon, we are Jagonite. So I'm not going to waste much time on that. I will look on at the country temps and whatnot and so forth. And I kind of like keep telling people I'm a retired professional who dabbled in politics. I never say I was a politician. I was a professional who dabbled in politics. And while I'm retired, I will still provide whatever help I can provide to the party that I support and that I will support right to the end until the maker calls me home, come hell or high water. So let me move on to one of the main topics I want to talk about today. A friend sent me a video of Jagdio's press conference last week. We usually have a banter going on and so forth. And he knows I don't listen to these press conferences and so on. So, but he still sent me this video. And I promptly deleted the video and told him, why are you sending me this thing? You know I don't listen to this foolishness. He never responded to me. But in Kaitor News of June the 16th, 2025, with the caption, Jagdio accuses Jordan of selling out state lands without collecting funds. A rather libelous headline, but Kaitor News feels that it will hide under the rubric that it was quoting Jagdio. Here's what I will read a part of it, of that article that concerns me. Quote, this is what coming from the article. At his recent press conference, Jagdeo accuses Jordan of being, quote, this is Jagdeo now, a person who was extraordinarily lazy in the period when I was Minister of Finance and President. But we kept him on. He was earning a foreign salary and doing very little in the Office of the Budget in the Ministry of Finance. End of Jagdeo's quote, as quoted by the Kaito News. I'm now quoting Kaito News here now. He went on to describe the former minister as, quote, this is Jagdeo, a disastrous minister of finance under the coalition's 5 years, who just put all these taxes that I have been talking about, layer upon layer of taxes, and in an unapologetic way, who was scandal-oriented. You remember what took place at GCOM and the conversation that was made public? You recall all of the lands that he transferred without collecting any money, some of them after the elections were held. End of quote of Jagdeo, as quoted in Kaito News. Now, this last piece is Kaito News. He said it was the same Jordan who thought that the US 18 million signing bonus was a gift to the coalition government. End of quote. Well, I would like to proffer some comments on some of these extremely libelous statements that were made by Jagdeo and quoted in the Kaito News. The first comment I would like to make is that I am now beginning to get concerned about Jagdeo's morbid obsession with me. Because this is the umpteenth time he seemed to have gone after me. I'm beginning to get worried about his morbid obsession with me. I don't know what is the obsession. I may have a clue in mind, but I don't know. I'd like to think that Jagdeo knows that I'm a married person. I have been married for this year 37 years. What is his obsession with me? I seem to recall the late Debbie Backer and her certain insinuations about this individual. I hope she was wrong. But I can see no reason why he's obsessed with me beyond the fact that I expose the shenanigans and who this individual is. I was in a position to expose because I worked with that individual in the Ministry of Finance. They came to power in 1992, October, when I was away on that 1 year Hubert Humphrey Fellowship, which is now under the Fulbright Fellowship. And I came back in, I think it's June or July of 1993. And I worked from 1993 until I resigned in 1994, August. So when previously he said on a previous press conference that he had sorried for me when they came in power in 1992 and kept me on, he could have knocked me off. And I responded to that. I didn't wait for you to knock me off, which he couldn't do. I resigned in August of 1994. And this is the individual who pursued me. I had no interest of going back to Ministry of Finance, but he pursued me. And when he became senior minister in 1995, he made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. And so I went back in June 1995. You know, I don't really want to use up our program time because we came on late, number one, and number two, it will take a lengthy time. I don't want to use up this program to deal with all of this foolishness here, because I dealt with his previous caustic criticisms and lies about me on a previous program or programs when I appeared on Nation Watch, the program of the PNCR that is moderated by Marvin Williams on Sundays. When I appeared on that program on Sunday, the 19th of January, in an over 2-hour broadcast. You know, you can find that program on YouTube for those who would like to go listen to it in your Juneteenth, seeing today is a holiday if you're at home and so on. You can go to YouTube and pick it up. Sunday 19th, is it Sunday 19th? It was Sunday 19th July. I see the program mark the 19th of July on it when I was looking for it. But in an over 2-hour broadcast, because the program is normally an hour, but it was extended for over 2 hours. I dissected, debunked, and laid bare everything that this individual, Mr. Know-It-All, had said about me. I presented facts, figures, documents. I read from the Hansard, and so on. It was a total dissection, total debunking. To date, this video on YouTube has attracted over 8,000 views. Over 8,000 views. And a similar presentation, in a sense, a precursor to that 19th January presentation, was made in December of 2024. To wit, the 15th of December of 2024. At least that is the date on the video. And that video itself has attracted nearly 3,000 views when I last checked. So combined, these two videos have attracted close to 11,000 views. And therefore, a lot of people out there know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I guess he's stung by what I've been able to put out there. And he comes lashing out. Can you imagine me, who's not a threat to the PPP, a retired professional who dabbled in politics, can occupy this guy's quote-unquote precious time in seeking to malign and attack me, rather than getting on with the business for which his lofty title of vice president implies. In fact, I have concluded that it was a result of these two programs, the one in December and the one in January, that I was visited by SOCU on March the 27th, 2025, with a summons to attend court on yet another trumped-up charge about land sale. Since that matter is before the court, I will say no more. I don't want to be accused nor hauled before the court for contempt. I am not that lucky. I see a number of people in the PPP, in the political, in government, the PPP, who talk all kinds of things of matters in court. They don't get dragged into the court for contempt. But I may not be that lucky, and I therefore don't want to antagonize the courts. So I will say nothing more of the matter that is in the court. But I want to remind viewers that following the discharge of the first matter about the sale of a wharf to BK International, y'all remember that case? Where they accused me of selling some wharf to BK, a wharf that they said worth $5 billion, and I sell it for $19 million or $20 million or so on. Where that matter was dismissed by the magistrate. And unknowing to me, the DPP took an ex parte application to the High Court to have me committed to stand trial in the High Court on the same matter that was discharged by the magistrate. She applied for a warrant to arrest me to stand trial in the High Court. I wasn't aware of this. The BK matter was dismissed in May of 2023. And in a judgment by the Chief Justice acting that was dated February 2024, she dismissed the DPP's application in a very scholarly and erudite decision that is worth reading for the areas that it touched on. She dismissed the application by the DPP. I should recall at this stage that I have sued the AG, the DPP, and 2 policemen in relation to this matter concerning the sale of wharf. I have sued them for $1 billion, Guyana dollars. And again, I say no more, other than to say that matter is before Justice Gino Prasad, and I await his decision. I say that in August of last year, he awarded me $200,000 on a preliminary matter, which should have been paid by October, first week, I think, of October or second week of October of last year. 100,000 each to be paid by the DPP and the AG, and so far they have made no payment. They have made no payment. But I will soldier on because my integrity is of paramount importance to me. And no one will get away with maligning me, maligning my name, and so on. No one, bar none. He feels that he's all powerful. He feels that all institutions of worth are under the thumb of the PPP. And therefore he could do or say anything and still in the safe knowledge that he will get away with it. I don't consider myself of any means, of any means. Whatever I got, I have worked for and worked for the old-fashioned way, hard. It's not much, but I'm contented. And in this life, contentment should be a big part of your being. But folks, have some fun with me. Have some fun with me. I must be the only lazy person who is not known to be a supporter of the PPP government, who was kept on for 12 years, 1995 to 2007, by Jagdeo, and being paid in quote, and being paid, quote, a foreign salary. Yeah, give me a thumbs up, man. Give me a thumbs up. I must have something going for me. I'm an extraordinarily lazy person who was able to survive 12 years. This fact of being extraordinarily lazy was known, but he still, quote, kept me on at, quote, a foreign salary. So y'all give me a thumbs up, man. Not everything is bleak. Give me a thumbs up. And when you're done, see through the smoke screen and the shenanigans and the lies. See through it for what it is. See through it for what it is. I want y'all to go to that video I'm talking about, the January one in particular. Go to it. And you will see exposed and laid bare why he's stung. And see who's the extraordinary lazy person. And see who was the patriot doing what was needed for a country before it crashed, before the incompetence. You know, it is only in Guyana, I believe, maybe other countries, but I only know about Guyana, where the likes of the Jagdeos could come through to be junior minister, prime minister, president, leader of the opposition, vice president. It's only the likes of the place like Guyana that can happen. I know y'all know that when y'all see laziness and extraordinary laziness, y'all can identify with it. Y'all know it when y'all see it. Even if it is dressed up in honorary degrees and other academic plumage from universities, no one remembers or care to remember. I don't need accolades or insults or whoever from the likes of the Jack Deos. They do nothing for me. You know, people said to me when I used to work at Ministry of Finance when the PPP was in power, they said, "Man, Jordan, like you switch sides or what?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Man, you working there as consultant and the Jack Deo them and the PPP." I said, "Brother, I work for the state again. I work for the state again. I'm well grounded. I am well grounded. And if they can pay me foreign salary, I'm happy. Because if not me, they can pay somebody else, most likely one looking like them. But as long as you remain well grounded, you have nothing to be afraid of. You have nothing to be afraid of. And you know why I don't bother with the likes of the Jack Deos and them, who while they have these big lofty titles and so on, believe that they could lord it over others. You know why I don't bother? I don't bother because when I receive the likes of what I received on Father's Day, here is someone who worked with me for a long time. Here is what she sent me on Father's Day. She says, "Happy Father's Day to one who emulated how to correct with kindness and guide with grace those who work for and with you. Always appreciated." Those are the compliments and the sentiments which I cherish and which push me forward and which push me further. Not the acid ungratefulness, unthankfulness of the likes of the Jack Deos them, who was willing to pay me a foreign salary for 12 years, not to be extraordinarily lazy, but to make him look good, to hide his incompetence. And while receiving the extraordinary, and while receiving the foreign salary in the early years, we were sworn to silence. Because it's not only me who received the foreign salary. The likes of the Winston Brassington, and Corset Satar, and Edgar Heliger, and the foreigner, Kobe Frimpong, and another foreigner in the AFC president who came as an ODI fellow, Overseas Development Institute fellow. These young people used to come out of England and come here, greenhorns, and who was being paid nearly 3 times the foreign salary that they were paying me in the AFC president he was. All of we were getting foreign salary to make Jack Deo look good. To make Jack Deo look good. And I don't recall any of us complaining. Certainly not me. I never talked about Jadio or the work I did at Ministry of Finance, ever. ever. Because as a good, true professional, that is not something that you may, you know. But that guy, from the time I became a minister, started attacking me. I don't mind if you attack the politics and so on. But when you begin to make it personal, you have to fight back. And it's as if his making it personal and demeaning is a way of lifting him up. I don't read Chronicle and I don't read Guyana Times. So I don't know if they printed this hogwash in there. The only two papers I read online are Kaito News and Stabrook News. I know for sure Stabrook News never carried this aspect of this press conference. But Kaito News did. And that's how I got to know. But in times like these, you got to be counseled and comforted by the words of Desiderata. Go placidly amid the noise and haste. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. And listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are a vexation to the spirit. And finally, be yourself. Especially, do not feign affection. Comforting words of desiderata in times like these when you have to deal with the likes of the Jagdios of this world. But you know, a larger issue is at play here. A larger narrative is at play here. Because I don't know whether he would like you to believe that he's criticizing members of the coalition and opposition, because I heard him saying how he's going to make the 5 years of the coalition the subject of their campaign. Can you imagine? You can't make what you did in 5 years, 2020 to 2025, the subject of your campaign. You got to make what the coalition did or did not do in 2015 to 2015, you the subject of your campaign. That is how dense, how unimaginary, how imaginative these people are. And what they think that they have to sell us or don't sell us because they feel they have it in the bag. There's a larger narrative I want people to recognize if they haven't done so. It is that Jagdeo has set himself up as demeanor in chief to target Guyanese of African descent for his vile, demeaning, defiling words. Note carefully, it's Dr. Hines, it's me, it's Dr. Hines, it's Nigel Hughes, it's Cathy Hughes, it's Amanza Walton Desir. Not forgetting Rickford Burke, Mark Benskop, Melly Mel, all are Guyanese of African descent. He has set himself up as demeanor in chief. And he has been emboldened by the recent decision of the judge in the Cathy Hughes versus Jagdeo case, in which it was deemed that low life, that Jaguar calling Cathy Hughes a low life, didn't rise to the threshold of libel. And that as a result of losing the case, Cathy Hughes now is faced with a bill of $4.1 million to be paid to Jaguar unless she appeals the decision all the way to the CCJ. And either wins or loses. Yes, he has been emboldened by that decision. He has been sued multiple times since 2020 and has not paid a penny, as far as I know. Certainly, Annette Ferguson's $20 million is still blowing in the wind. And only today I read a case where Gulsaran case is supposed to be coming up today or something like that, in which Gulsaran sued him, and so on. He has not been paid a penny. He has not paid a penny. So people have been calling me and messaging me, man, are you going to answer him? Are you going to be suing for libel and all this kind of story? And I said to him, you know, brother, there's a limit to what I can do. I have been facing quite a bit of court bills, paying lawyers and all this kind of thing to fend off all these, because people don't realize how many different cases I have had in court because they came after me. How many different cases I've had in court. And how much money I've had to shell out to pay lawyers and all these things. So after I read that case, in which now you could call people low life with ease and impunity, what about extraordinary, lazy, and such like? I just dismiss that. I'm not going to waste time with libel suit, especially against Jaguar when the man is like Teflon and nothing sticks, you know. And even if you win, you got a long tralala to CCJ. Where you going to get this money from? I'm not a rich man. I didn't make it from Unity to the presidency and along the way accumulated wealth. I'm a good intent man, born in good intent. Traveled through the school of hard knocks. Made it to Minister of Finance. Used whatever learning I had to push the coalition and its progress. And immediately demitted office after it came time to demit office. And retreated into my little paradise here, my little home here in South Rhineville. So I haven't accumulated any wealth to be able to be shelling out money to pay lawyers and whatnot, because people are coming after you. You have to be extremely selective. So I understand my admirers and what you all think I should be doing, but nobody helping me to help pay them lawyers. And so some things I just got to cut my eye and bat my eyelid and let it go, unless it's really, really goes to the heart of something where I can't let it go. But extraordinary lazy, most people know that is rubbish. And in fact, it has been just dismissed with a level of contempt by many of the news media and so on. As I said, it's only Kaito News that I recall reading it. I don't read the rest, so I don't know if the other two carried it. But you know, I will take that any day, especially if after people go to the video and learn about this individual. I'll take that day any day. You know? But people have to start pushing back. This is not about the coalition. This is about a wider thing. It's about a race called Africans and Guyanese of African descent who have been the subject of this man demeaning, defiling, and degrading words, attitude, and treatment. And we have to push back on it. We are no longer slaves. We are not your slaves. Our foreparents suffered brutally in slave and servitude. And as God above us, we will never go back into that position. It was the white planter class then, and we will not go back to it for any white or brown. And you think you could sit down or go anywhere you want and treat us with the contempt to your language and otherwise in which you do, and think we won't push back against it? I see how you treat people like Edge Hill publicly, scolding and admonishing him in public like if he's a little boy. And he says nothing. Well, if he wants to do that as a Guyanese of African descent, so be it. But as a Guyanese of African descent, watching that, it's about race. It's about race. And all of y'all who don't want to talk about race, even as you sit down there and accept that demeaning attitude that they're doing to black people, if it don't remind you of slavery, if it don't remind you of what your ancestors went through, I say shame on you. Shame on all y'all. Shame on all of y'all. A man calls a middle class African Guyanese of pedigree a low life and gets away with it. And gets away with it. And we, as a Guyanese of African descent, don't go up in arms against that. We don't go up in arms against that. It has emboldened him. Because after all, the narrative is being peddled that we don't have heroes. Black people don't have heroes. A little twit went on radio and television. A television supposedly owned by black, a Guyanese of African descent, and espoused Guyanese don't have heroes. You don't have heroes in the coalition. Guyanese of African descent, by the way. You don't have heroes in the coalition. And he points to his father as his hero. He points to his father as his hero. So that is the narrative they want to think. Slavery on this Juneteenth might have ended. That is physical slavery. But mental slavery is well and truly alive, especially in the black community. But many of us, we want to fight. We want to fight. We want to pull down each other. We have this crab in the barrel mentality. We don't want them to succeed because success of them is failure of us. We don't see success of our people, success for everybody. We see it as a failure of us. That is why we are always scrambling. And we want to flake off the votes instead of combining all our strengths to get into government and then fight when we get into government. We don't want to do that. All the lofty talk that we engage in. Oh, don't say it that way. A vote for any one of our parties is a vote against the PPP. True. A true thing never have said. True. But if you have 30 parties and the black, particularly the African vote, is going to these 30 parties, or not, singly, you're going to be able to get into government. How on earth singly you're going to be able to get into government? And you know what I really can't digest? Is that when they were putting Irfan Ali as president, it's not to say that he was a unifying candidate, he was a united candidate, and so on. But once he was made the candidate with all of his baggage and so on, his party rallied around him. Rallied around him. Because you know what? The greater prize is the government. The greater prize is the government. But anyway, man, look, I asking that we remain focused because there's a lot of distractions. He said that how he can use the coalition's 5 years as their campaign thing. I asked, don't get sidetracked. So far, we've been sidetracked. And as a result of this sidetracking, our message or the APNU's message is getting subsumed. I ask people, the APNU is promised to immediately increase your salary to 200,000 minimum. Shouldn't you be saying, okay, my salary now as well, even with the 8%, it's 100,000. Within 3 months of September the 4th, my salary going to be 200,000. Should that be something I should worry about and care about? That message is getting lost with all the fight about who should win, who can win. I going to farm my own party and all this thing. All of the message is getting lost. And who is the winner? The PPP. Because the opposition is doing the bidding of the PPP. The opposition is winning the election for the PPP. We are being sidetracked. 18 million bonus, don't matter how much you are, don't matter how much you explain that, and don't think that these people don't know. They know. But they are going to bring it up to sidetrack you again. And if you want to be encompassed with that rubbish narrative, even though you know it's not being true, then that same man calling you stupid may well be an appellation that you should be carrying. If you don't know that the 18 million was safer than Fort Knox, if you don't know what the 18 million did for us, if you don't know after the receipts for that 18 million plus the interest is splashed all over YouTube, where you can go and see it, and you will still buy into some foolishness that the likes of the Jagrios them saying, then you want to be sidetracked. You don't want to hear a positive message. I don't know why myself too. I don't know why. But I was saying, so you don't want to hear a positive message. You want to be sidetracked into those alleys. Look, at his recent address to the Enmore martyrs, Ali quoted from the ILO study Hey, what's happening, man? We're losing. Hello? Eh? Well, I hope we are able to I hope we are able to finish off this. I was saying at his recent and more martyrs message, Ali was quoting from the ILO study that was done by Dr. Thomas Singh, senior lecturer of the University of Guyana. He was quoting from that. And he quoted, as he said, the study that showed how sugar workers were affected by the closure of the estates. He quoted that, or he referenced it. I don't know. I don't know that he quoted. He referenced it. But at the same time, he was talking about over 7,000 sugar workers. Over 7,000 sugar workers. Now, if Ali read the ILO study as he had given the impression that he did, that same ILO study showed that just over 5,000 sugar workers lost their jobs or were severed. Just over 5,000. But Ali, at that same and more martyrs, had to continue with the narrative of 7,000. Only at this time around, he said over 7,000 workers. They can never get their stuff right. They can never get it right. Jag, you're talking about layers and layers of taxes. At one time, he put the figure at 200,000. But when Ashley Singh was asked in Parliament to please give us a list of the 200,000, his answer was, it's already in the public domain. Never give them. But a couple of months ago, Jagyo said, no, hold on. We did another count. It's more like 300 or something taxes. They can never get their facts right. They can never get their facts right. It's not 50,000 jobs we have provided. It's 60,000. When asked where, what sectors, and how, they can't provide it. You see, our people, if you want to get sidetracked into these foolishness, go ahead. Go ahead. Because they're just that. Their foolishness, their obfuscation. They're designed to bamboozle you. But all you need to do is keep a head on. Think straight. Ask clearly the message. Would I like $200,000 as my starting salary? Or would I like to continue with this 100,000 that I don't even get the 8%? Long after the salaries had been agreed on, I still can't get the 8% in my January 2025 salary. I still can't get it. So I plead with our supporters, don't get sidetracked into these alleys, these blind alleys, and these obfuscated messages. Ask questions. Ask questions. And this is what they are going to do. They are going to burnish you with 18 million sign-in bonus and 200 taxes and layers upon layers of taxes. Ask the ordinary man. Ask the ordinary man. Compare his life today. That's all you got to do. Ask him, compare your life today with 5 years ago. All you got to do is be honest. Compare your life today with 5 years ago when we didn't have the money that is floating around here. Compare it. I don't know how much more time we got, Kidaki. Kidaki, do we have any more time? Hello, Kidaki? Okay, all right, good. Right? So I would leave that there. Like I said, I didn't want that to take up the program as such, but I thought that it dovetailed nicely into what was all that is happening right now and so on, right? Because it's not about me. I really don't ever make these things about me, but I really feel as a African, Guyanese of African, is the demeaning attitude of individuals like Jack Dio in the PPP. I think we have allowed that to pass, either because we don't want to say nothing, or we want to lose the job, or all these kinds of things. But we sit back hurt and mumbling to ourselves instead of fighting back. And I don't know how much more demeaning we can take, as if slavery were not enough. You got people who think that they can enslave us, not physically tying us up and branding us and so on, but using all the other tools of slavery in re-enslaving us. And that is what is happening. That is what is happening. You don't need leg irons. You don't need leg irons and mouth jawbreakers and whatever else they had. But there are other cruelties of slavery, more refined, that are happening. Look around and see to us. That's all I ask. And tell ourselves whether that is the station in life that our ancestors fought for to bring us into today. The other aspect, other issue I want to talk about today, I want to talk about a whole set of issues, but we can eventually run out of time. So let me just speak quickly about this other one. You know, this is a Demerara waves of Tuesday, the 10th of June, 2025. Under the headline, High Court orders government to pay former finance secretary for unlawful dismissal. It didn't make, apparently it didn't make the national media. Certainly not in the two that I read, which is Skytro News and Stabrook News. I didn't see this in their online version. I can't say whether it was in their printed version. The online version, I didn't see this. But anyhow, it's in the Demerara Waves, Tuesday, the 10th of June, 2025. It says the Chief Justice ruled on Tuesday, the 10th of June, that a letter sent by the AG Anil Nandalal on the 13th of November 2020, dismissing then Finance Secretary Michael Basil Joseph, was unlawful. And so she awarded him 2 months' salary and cost of $250,000. Joseph had claimed wrongful dismissal because he was terminated with 1 month's notice instead of 3 months, as per the amendment to his employment contract, which was amended on the 28th of July, 2020. The AG contended that the amendment was done after the passage of the no confidence motion, as you well know, which was in December 2018. He argued that the government, as a result, was in caretaker mode. Hence, the amendment was illegal and unenforceable. The Chief Justice agreed that the government was a caretaker administration. However, she ruled that the government could have lawfully amended Joseph's contract of employment to trim the then government. Okay, let me read that again. However, she ruled that the then government, which is the coalition government, could have lawfully amended Joseph's contract of employment to 3 months' salary in lieu of termination. The comments I want to make is this. First, I congratulate Michael on his win and for staying the course, and for going about what he knew was wrong. The problem here is that of the thousands who were fired, arbitrarily dismissed, and whatever after August the 2nd, 2020, only a tiny fraction, only a tiny number would have been able to seek redress and justice through the courts. Through the courts, right? As I indicated, the court is a very costly exercise. And not many of them eking out an existence will be able to set aside monies to deal with the courts. Right? Basil Michael was one of them, and he was able to secure a lawyer and go to court because he knew he was in his right. The other thing, of course, is that the length of time that these matters take, his took nearly 5 years. I don't know how many more are pending and have not as yet reached the attention of a judge or have been concluded successfully. And I say successfully guardedly because we don't know whether the AG is going to appeal and appeal all the way to the CCJ. We don't know that. And that could be years if he appeals, years before Michael sees any money. How many people will have that stamina? How many? And I think sometimes this is what they bank on. This is what they bank on. But the more fundamental issue I wanted to raise is not so much his, which of course I'm not dismissing as not being fundamental and so on. It's this business about caretaker administration, which somehow is, I wouldn't want to say a novelty, but which somehow is kind of new to the lexicon of Guyana. It's been around a while and in other places, but in terms of Guyana, this caretaker administration came about during the fight, the court fights for the last elections, 2020 elections. And I distinctly recall it mentioned by the CCJ. I don't recall if the High Court and the Chief Justice George had mentioned it, but I looked at the Constitution. I'm no constitutional expert or so on, and I can see no reference to caretaker administration in the Constitution. The Constitution does provide, however, that in the case of a no confidence motion, elections are to be held within 90 days. 90 days of a no confidence motion. I can see no law in Guyana that expressly or impliedly stating the restrictions of a caretaker administration or a caretaker government. And as I said, I remember the CCJ mentioning this business about caretaker administration. But I don't recall that the CCJ laid down guidelines or whatever as to what the caretaker administration can do and can't do. I don't recall that. I know, for example, there's a specific article in the Constitution that speaks to the dissolution of Parliament, for example, and spending during the dissolution of Parliament. And I've raised this on a number of occasions on this program. Again, as I said, I don't see any reference to caretaker administration. So I then looked up, I tried to look up and see what really is this caretaker government. And according to some, a caretaker government is a temporary government that typically operates during a transition period, such as before or after an election, or during a change in leadership. It is tasked with maintaining the essential functions of the state while avoiding major policy decisions that could be controversial or binding a future government. Well, if I take that definition, and if we were in a caretaker administration, how is the amendment to an employment contract not to extend his term, but extend the period for giving notice can be within the meaning of a major policy decision or can be controversial? And perhaps in her wisdom and knowledge, that is what the Chief Justice in her decision saw. That this wasn't a major policy decision, or it wasn't a controversial decision, or so on. The note goes on to say that the caretaker period begins when either the government loses a vote of non-confidence or Parliament has been dissolved, And my research tells me that one of the fine examples that has been laid out in some detail of what a caretaker government looks like or can do is Canada. It's in Canada. And they refer to a caretaker government as the period between the dissolution of Parliament for an election and the swearing in of a new government, or the return of the incumbent government. During this period, the government is guided by what is called the Convention of Restraint. 1, routine, urgent, or non-controversial matters. See, again, those for me are kind of like nebulous. What is a non-controversial matter? I imagine paying salary is a non-controversial matter. Paying salary to existing public servants is a non-controversial matter. That might be non-controversial, but what is controversial to person A might be non-controversial to person B. So those to me are kind of concepts. I don't know. They will then tell you what an ordinary man, feels or views or whatever. Again, the lawyers can deal with. But again, as I said, it is hard to just leave it like that. The second convention of restraint is that there shall be no new initiatives, such as launching major new policy initiatives or making significant appointments. Now that I could understand. If you call election and then you're trying to make appointments which are going to be hard for a new government to remove those individuals because they're either constitutional, statutory, or otherwise, I could understand that must be a no-no. And the third convention of restraint, is that there's no legal compulsion. That is, while the Caretaker Convention is well established, it is based on a tradition and convention rather than law. So it was meaning there's no legal penalty for violating it. So in other words, then this is our like gentleman's agreement. And if we really want, we should be putting them in law. Exercising restraint does not mean that the government is prohibited from making decisions or announcements or otherwise taking actions during the caretaker period. I mean, that is what part of what I found. And again, as I said, to me, sometimes it is not properly defined. And I think in the case of Guyana, I believe that it's time, especially during the constitutional reform exercise, that we think about defining this caretaker government in the Constitution and then subsequently making laws to really go into the granular details of what this caretaker administration can do, and what it can do. And I think our Constitution, it's time that such a government, it must be made clear, goes into caretaker mode the minute that you have a no confidence vote or the minute Parliament is dissolved. And for that, the Constitution ought to be amended appropriately to given precise dates when Parliament must be dissolved. Right now, those dates appear to be a shooting target. It must be made explicit, direct, specific. Parliament must be dissolved, say, 90 days before the date of general elections, full stop. Don't put within and without and all these kinds of things. Let it be absolutely clear, direct and specific. And that once that Parliament is dissolved, within that 90 days, it's a caretaker government in place. So it don't have to be only in that one-off situation of no confidence motion, that on the dissolution of Parliament, your government must move into a caretaker administration. And I say this particularly in the context of Guyana, where all this money is floating around. All of this money is floating around, right? And you still hear during this period when an election has been called, a date has been called, you still all hear all kind of serious policy initiatives being undertaken. Serious policy initiatives being undertaken. Loans continue to be signed. I know we're going to run out of time because I wanted to deal with that aspect of loans. I will have to leave it for next week. But only in today's papers, another 18 million has been taken for the agricultural sector in a very familiar area, agricultural and infrastructural development. It's called 8P. It has been taken from the same institution that gave us a loan for the RAID program. Rural Agricultural and Infrastructural Development Program. In those 4 villages. And it's the same institution that had given us RAID 1 for those 4 other villages in the Indian areas. So we have a third loan now called 8P, Agricultural Infrastructure Development, 80 million, signed yesterday or day before yesterday or whenever. But that is chump change compared to the $350 million loan that was signed 2 weeks ago from the IDB. And as I said, I will deal with that next week. I want to deal with it today, but I can't. And so come back to this caretaker administration story. So that the spending within that caretaker mode will be defined. There continue to be soil turning for new projects. Soil turning yesterday for the Freedom Hoop School. Soil turning for this place in the hinterland. Soil turning for that place in the hinterland. You see, when we have the caretaker administration, none of these activities can take place. It will only be the regular spending, emergency spending of the government. All of this designed to take away the unfair advantage of incumbency of the government and allow others to be able to compete. But you can't compete against the incumbency where the government is using the treasury's money to lauder and ladder and whatever else. And related to this and the reform that we are talking about, especially in the Constitution and so on, is this business of campaign financing. Campaign financing, it has now loomed large. It has now loomed large. It has always been a story that has been covered down, but it's now loomed large, especially in recent times with the fallout between the Mohammeds and the government. There was a check that was floating around. I haven't heard either the Mohammeds or the government say that the check is false and so on, in which it was alleged that the Mohammeds gave $100 million to the PPP. The check was there. $100 million. And then there are all them other big donors who are paying all of these different money. It is clear that the time, I understand, look, it is clear that the time has arrived, given the amount of money in this country that is floating around this country, for campaign financing laws to be put on the books. Right? The Washington Post on December the 6th, 2024, reported, for example, that Elon Musk had donated $277 million to the Trump and allied Republicans, to Trump and allied Republicans. And you can see the influence that he bought in the Trump administration. It's no different here. It's no different. Significant influence has been bought by the private sector in the PPP administration. And it's reflected in their so-called policies that is supposed to benefit everybody. Remember, in the height of the COVID of 2020, when the government came in, the first thing the government sought to do in the height of the COVID is to remove all taxes from the health, the private health and the education sectors. That was a priority for them in 2020 in their first budget. Who you think they were fooling? You think education fees went down? You think health fees went down? And who you think all these health vouchers that are tenable at the private sector, various places in the private sector, who are they benefiting at the time when you're building 6 regional places, fancy hospital, refurbishing of all the existing? Who you think it benefiting? And all the other examples that I can bring, too numerous to mention. Influence as a result of campaign financing by large and medium-sized donors in the various sectors. And they get the reward through these policies. We have to put in place legislation regulating campaign donors and campaign financing. And part of the reforms that I am looking at is that we must put in place, one, laws to regulate how money is raised and spent in political campaigns. In other words, then, if money is raised for political campaign, it must be for a political campaign. And therefore, we must have a register or registry where expenses of political campaign, where you can file those expenses. And let us be aware of what those monies were used for. And we must, at the same time, put in our laws public financing for qualifying candidates. And we must have criteria of who is a qualifying candidate. We must put our laws in there to assist. So again, to even the playing field. Because as people well know, small parties are virtually out of the blocks in terms of raising financing and so on. Similarly, as we were hoping to do, we must put in place some amount of financing for members of parliament to be able to service their constituencies. I know we don't have force past the post, and so we don't have identifiable constituencies, but every member of parliament is assigned a certain area by his or her party, and they must be able to service that area. And short of those in government who can use government resources, and short of those MPs who are aligned to the government who can get access to resources, opposition MPs are in a flux. Because except for the $300,000 that they get every month as MPs, they have no allowance for servicing of their constituencies. This is a major problem, and it puts especially those MPs in the opposition as a disadvantage. And in this regard also, the leader of the opposition must have an office that is akin to a ministry. This happened before. Cherry Jagan had an office akin to a ministry, including a principal and administrative secretary and so on. We have to put back in the budget office of the leader of opposition, which carries the status of a ministry. So you have all the different permanent secretary, PAS, advisors, whoever else, and with a large enough budget for the MPs to be able to service their ministry. So these are some of the reforms in the context of the caretaker government, campaign financing, public financing, and so on that I would like to see. I hope it raises some kind of discussion, because like I said, we're talking here trillions. We're not going to have budgets anymore in the millions. We're going to have budgets in the trillions of dollars. This is a lot of money swimming around in this country. And we have to be able to put in place measures that are fairer, more transparent, more accountable, and so on. And that gives people a better chance of stepping up. Right? I see Christopher Ram has a case right now in court where he's talking about individual as opposed to party. Whether the Constitution provides for individual running for presidency as opposed to party and so on. Interesting. We'd like to see where that will lead. And we hope if he wins, that it doesn't mean that you have to be a Mohammed, a billionaire in Guyana terms at least, to be able to run. Right? Even though the ordinary man is unlikely to get the support, because elections is not only about your ideas and so on, it's about big money and big donors. All right, so Kodaki, yes, I know we well out of time today, but I thought it was a good session, and my throat held up. And
thank you
to our viewers again. Once again, I say happy Juneteenth. Enjoy an accident-free. Enjoy an accident-free day. And yes, as I said, you can do your merriment and so on. Those who don't have to go to work, well, relax with the family and so forth, and take the opportunity also to educate the younger folks about Juneteenth, slavery, emancipation, and so on. All right. So enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you very much for your sacrifice and your service. Have a good one. Yes, viewers, that was Mr. Jordan doing his thing there. Indeed, a marathon session. It is 5 minutes to the 10 o'clock hour. Look at that. Look at that. Y'all just come and tell me begging when I say contribute something to the upkeep of this program. It's 4 hours, you know. You know what's the value of 4 hours? Y'all have a great day. Y'all have a great day. See you tomorrow morning for Free Talk Friday. Bye-bye. I ain't got nothing else to say. I can't carry you over the 10 o'clock hour. Much love. I know you've learned a lot. And education is supposed to change attitudes. So let me see the change in those attitudes. Y'all have a good one. Remember Cash App, remember Zelle, remember everything else that you can contribute to the program's upkeep with. Goodbye.